So this was kind of brought up this past week when it comes to Star Wars. It's really interesting because I've talked about this in the past, and it's getting worse when it comes to Star Wars. And I hate to keep ragging on Star Wars. I really do, but this is bothering me. This is something that is bothering me. So, Star Wars has a twist problem. What is with Star Wars and twists? So, there's people who have this belief, and it's more Lucasfilm in the Disney era who have this belief, which I don't know why, but they have this belief that Star Wars has to have twists. Why? Like J.J. Abrams with The Force Awakens was like, hey, let's add the mystery box, which is a form of twists. Now, let's take a look at what I got here, okay? What I got here, we're going to do it. Which way? Let's do it this way. So, when it comes to Star Wars, in the Acolyte right now, the big twist was, who is the stranger? Who's the masked Sith? And it turned out to be Khmer or Smilo Ren, whatever it is. The Force Awakens was, who is Rey? Who am I? Who are you? And it turned out to be a nobody. Then it was Palpatine. Now she's Skywalker. It was stupid. And The Mandalorian even. It was, what is Grogu? Where did Grogu come from? And we still don't have all the answers from about Grogu, but it's there. We know that he was around during Order 66 and was saved by the actor who played Jar Jar Binks, who happened to be a Jedi at the time. Then we have Snoke, and we all thought, who is Snoke? What is Snoke? And then we found out that he's some sort of clone of some sort. And then, that happened. And then we had the whole May and Osha thing. Who and what are May and Osha? Oh, they're created beings of the Force by lesbian witches. But then people go back to this. But the thing that people get wrong, this isn't a twist. At least it's not your typical twist. You see, this is where people always go back to when it comes to Star Wars and twists. And this is where Disney Lucasfilm get things wrong. You see, Star Wars A New Hope was a straight up adventure film. It was an action adventure film. It was a great time. Not a great time. It was a hero's journey. It was Luke Skywalker finding himself, believing he's going to rescue a damsel in distress, but the damsel in distress ends up rescuing both him and Han Solo as they escape the Death Star. They then go and save the day, destroying the Death Star. You know the story. There was no twist there. It was just a good action adventure story. Empire Strikes Back. Now, sure, let me go back to New Hope real quick. Star Wars. There was some mystery there. You knew my father? Oh, he was a pupil of mine until you knew my father? Oh, I fought alongside with him in the Clone Wars until a young pupil of mine turned to evil, hunted down and killed the Jedi, all that stuff. So there was a shroud of mystery there, but there was no twist that was seen coming. We get to Empire, and again, it was just a continuation of that adventure, of that hero's journey. Luke continuing his journey of becoming the man he's destined to be. He goes to train. He goes to become the man he's supposed to be. He goes to Dagobah. Oh, you're not ready to face Vader. You're not ready to face Vader. The only reason why we believe he's not ready to face Vader is because we believe Vader is much more powerful than he is. That's the only reason we believe he's not ready to face Vader. When he faces Vader, Vader tells him, "No, I am your father." Now, I wasn't alive when this movie came out in 1980. And I'm sure many of you who are watching this or listening to this were not alive during that time. But I've talked to people who were. I've read the articles from that time. People did not believe what Vader was saying. People thought Vader was lying to Luke. They believed that when Star Wars 3 came out, that's what they called it, Star Wars 3, that when Star Wars 3 came out, that it was going to be revealed that Vader was lying to Luke to try and manipulate him to join him. So there was no major twist. It wasn't a twist. It wasn't something that was supposed to be like a, oh, what a twist type of thing. It wasn't an M. Night Shyamalan twist in the movie. Come Return of the Jedi, Obi-Wan and Yoda, they reiterate to Luke, your father is. You have a twin sister. There's another little reveal. But again, no twists. But for some odd reason, when Disney took over Star Wars, they believed they had to have this big twist. I even at one time believed that we had to have a twist in Star Wars. I always believed during the prequel trilogy that George Lucas should have done something cool in Revenge of the Sith and had Mace Windu kill Palpatine in front of Anakin. And then, which would have led Anakin and Mace Windu to have a really, really cool lightsaber battle, the two of them. And Mace Windu and Anakin are fighting in Chancellor Palpatine's office. And while they're fighting, and they're having a conversation. Mace is like, Anakin, don't do this. It had to be done. It had to be done. He was the Sith Lord. And they're having a fight. But then you start to hear Palpatine's voice. Anakin believes it's in his head, but Mace is realizing he's hearing the voice as well. And then you start to hear laughing. And from the shadows, we see Palpatine walk from the shadows, old and frail, because it was a clone who is the actual Chancellor. And I thought that would have been a cool, quote unquote, twist that would have been in Revenge of the Sith. And I always thought, oh, see, we need a twist in the prequels, just like we had in the original trilogy. But again, it was never a twist. George was never trying to add twists. It was story driven. Everything had a point. Everything had a reason. It was never about the twist. But in the Disney era, for some reason, it's all about the twists. It's all about the mystery. Why? Because they're just not talented enough to come up with good story. Obsidian Odor says, J.J. Abrams builds up mystery to go nowhere with it. I've watched the entire Lost series. Huge waste of my time. He's not wrong. I didn't watch Lost. But it's kind of what happened with The Force Awakens. J.J. Abrams is good with setting up the mystery box. And don't get me wrong, The Force Awakens got me even. It got me. I was like, yeah, who is Rey? That's interesting. But in hindsight, when you sit back, why didn't we just get told who Rey was? Because it would have been a much more interesting story if we would have known, if from the very beginning, if we would have found out that Rey is a Palpatine, it would have been so much more intriguing, so much more interesting to know that Rey, for 3 movies, is pushing back on this idea that she's a Palpatine. That would have given 3 movies of pushing back and believing, I'm a Palpatine, I'm meant to be evil. On the flip side, you then have Ben Solo, Kylo Ren, who comes from the Skywalker lineage, who is believed to be good, who's supposed to be good, and he's evil. And then you go and it pushes forward. And this story then is, you have one who is trying to keep herself from being evil and one who's trying to keep himself from being good. And then let's just say it flip-flops come the end. And it flip-flops and you have one who becomes evil. They flip-flop. It could have been a much better story than this mystery of who is Rey that becomes in the second movie a nobody, then in the third movie a Palpatine. Like, you see, it's lazy story writing is what it comes down to. There's a time when a mystery is fun. Christopher Nolan is good at doing it. M. Night Shyamalan has his moments when he's good at doing it. There are storytellers, there are filmmakers who are capable of doing it. But Star Wars is not that, at least not all the time. You don't have to do it with every single story you tell. There's no reason to tell it in every story. It makes no sense. There's literally no sense to tell it in every story. For instance, if we didn't get it with Rey, great. Like I said, it could have been really good. With Mandalorian, it makes sense. There's a little bit of mystery with Grogu. Understanding, because they've revealed bits and pieces of it as the story's gone along, because the storytelling works for it. They've done a good job building who Grogu is as it goes along, because it makes sense. He has this opportunity. We know he has the Force, but he has the opportunity to go and train with Luke and continue his training to be a Jedi. And we can learn more about his past. Or he has the opportunity to be a foundling with Din Djarin and be a Mandalorian. And it makes sense in that regard. Like that little mystery. And they could have done so well had they not been forced to quickly reunite Grogu with Din Djarin and explore more with Grogu and Luke. They could have done so much more with that. But again, bad storytelling to a point, because they were forced and pushed to speed up them reuniting the two, which I think was a terrible idea. I get why they did it, but it was a terrible idea. You should have had at least 5 to 6 episodes where the Mandalorian Din Djarin was off on his own doing things by himself, struggling because he missed Grogu, while Grogu was off training with Luke. Luke and him discovering, revealing his past, and we would see what his past was, where he came from, who he trained with, maybe even have a scene with him and Yoda, have some of that past revealed. It would have been fantastic to see. But him ultimately struggling, that he's grown attached to Din Djarin, and his attachment to Din Djarin is holding him back from pursuing being a Jedi anymore. And then after 5 or 6 episodes, he finds his way back to Din Djarin. Like, that would have been so much better storytelling than the end of season 2, he goes with Luke, and then the next time we see them, they're back together. I get it. The Book of Boba Fett, they had their reunited moment and, everything like that. But let's face it, not everybody watched the Book of Boba Fett. So if you didn't watch it, there's some people who see them gone, and then the next episode they're together again. Makes no sense. But I digress. Then the Snoke stuff, you have that stuff, again, just half-ass storytelling. You don't have to put twists and all these mysteries into Star Wars. That's not what Star Wars is. Star Wars has a twist problem. Star Wars has a mystery problem. They need to get away from it. The Acolyte proves that right now. The Acolyte 100% proves that right now. Because they literally, this show hinged on who this guy was. I mean, honestly, that was the only thing that was intriguing to 90% of the fandom. Who is that guy? Who's Smilo Ren? Who's Smilo Ren? And granted, everybody knew who it was because the writers are terrible writers. But let's just say the writers were even a quarter better than they are, and it wasn't Khmer. Well, they would have probably had a lot more people hooked than they actually do. And if they would have just dragged it on for maybe 1 or 2 more episodes before they revealed it. It could have been more intriguing, but that's all this show had going for it because that's all they focus on are twists, are mysteries. And that's not what Star Wars is. Look at the original 6 movies. The original 6 movies are not about mystery to the audience. The characters, the story may have mystery for the characters in the story. But for the audience doesn't have that mystery. The audience is on the adventure. They're going through the story. It's exciting, it's fun, it's adventurous. Adventurous, if I can talk. It's not about the twist, it's not about the mystery. But under Disney, Lucasfilm, Disney and Lucasfilm, under Disney, they've screwed it up. They've gotten away from that. And that's a problem. That's bad. Bad Disney. And I just, they don't understand what they're doing. They need to fix it. They need to fix it fast. Because Star Wars is in a bad, bad place. Like I said last week, they are in a bad place. They are in a bad place. And I would have added this. This probably would have been my number 10. Now, this probably would have been my number 10 had I realized this last week. Like I said, I've talked about this before, but I didn't realize how bad it was until this week. Like this week, it was like a big deal. Like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, social media was blowing up about twists and everything like that. Leslie Headland was saying stuff about it. I guess late last week. It was wild. But what do you think? Do you think Star Wars has a twist problem? Do you think there are issues with Star Wars when it comes to twists? Do you think, I mean, maybe you do. Do you think this scene, "No, I am your father," was a twist? Do you think that was a twist? It was not a twist, folks. It was a reveal. It was a moment in a story that was needed to push the story forward, but it was not a twist. It was not a twist. It was much different than a twist. Do you think the mystery of Rey was needed for the sequel trilogy, or could they have probably made a better sequel trilogy had they just revealed who she was from the very beginning? I think they could have made a better movie and a better series, sequel trilogy, had they done that. But what do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments because I want to know.